James, what do you say to people? Someone texted me this the other day, and I gave them a response. I'd love to hear your response. What do you say to people who say, hey, there's nothing new about CrossFit. It's just taking a bunch of old movements and mixing them together. Greg Glassman didn't invent anything. He just branded the movements. How can he patent the movements? What is CrossFit doing? This is just, has always been here. I'm sure you've heard that, right?
Yeah, I was that guy. It was, I literally, when I first started, I stumbled on CrossFit, back in early 2007. And it was through a friend of mine. And then I started training with another buddy. And I would always say to him, I was like, who are these CrossFit guys that acted like they invented the push-up? Like, who cares? People have been doing push-ups forever. Usually, if someone says that to me, it's I don't even have that argument with them anymore. My righteous self, 5 years ago, I probably would have been like, you just don't understand. And it's, but now it's like, well, that's cool. What would it get you to try it? What would you want to do it? And I always remind them too, is like, yeah, I don't necessarily think the special thing about CrossFit is exactly, the fact that we use functional movements. That's a core part of our methodology, but it's the combinations, it's the philosophy behind it, it's the effectiveness of the combinations, it's the community, the experience you have when you're in a gym. I mean, that's what it has always been for me. And I joke about this, like, I thought there was going to be a day after I went to my level 1 where I'd lift up a 95-pound barbell, and I was like, oh shit, I beat CrossFit. I won. I got all the fitness. That was it. Tapped out. And that hasn't happened. Like, you get fitter and you get stronger, and the workouts get more miserable as you get fitter. And what's kept me involved with it this entire time is just the people I meet, and just the experience of shared suffering is something I really value. So I share that aspect of it with them. I don't stress out about that stuff anymore too much. And I know that might seem silly because I spend a lot of my weekends telling people exactly what CrossFit is and how we're different from other fitness programs, but it's that part of it that's been the most valuable to me for the longest.
This reminds me of something that you said, I don't know if it was this week or last week, Sevan, on one of your IG stories, talking about just recognizing the perspective of the person you're interacting with. You used an example of a 5,000 foot perspective compared to a 100,000 foot perspective. I think it was with regard to a different topic, but what I hear you saying, James, is that I recognize, in as humble a way as you probably can, that you have a very elevated view of what CrossFit is because of as Sevan said, all the different experiences you've had with it for 13 years. And when someone's saying something that to you, you have to recognize they don't have those experiences. So how can you meet them where they're at, type of thing. So that's cool that you've evolved in that way in the last couple of years.
And I think it took me a while to get there. It's like, when you first, and I'm still excited about it, but when you first start something, there's that honeymoon period, and you can't do, there's all the jokes. The only, the worst thing about CrossFit, coaches is that they never shut up about CrossFit, and I still am that to this day, but you're excited to talk about it and live it, and everything you do focuses around it. And also because you're so excited to be a part of it, you're just very rigid in your application of it. And that has changed, over the years. And one of the things I think I've learned the most is just the simplicity of the application. Like, I still find myself regularly saying, I'll go do a couple simple, uncomplicated couplets and triplets, 2 movements or 3 movements workouts a few times a week, and I'll feel really good. And, I'll get better at a skill, or I'll get stronger at a movement. I always say to my wife, I'm just like, holy shit, CrossFit just works. Like, it just works. Even in its simplest expression, the basics of the methodology, I'm like, and that's always amazing to me, because if you don't find a lot of things in life that just work and work well, it's like, and that's just, at this point, I'm way more appreciative of that than I ever have been, because I think when you're new and you're excited, you learn something, and then you're like, all right, great, what's next? What's the next step? What's the next cool thing? And I feel like hopefully I've matured past that a little bit, and I just keep finding, so much value, like a sunrise, it's like there's just so much value and appreciation in that simple thing.
I think you can always do Cindy.
Yeah. And it just works, man.
And it just works.
That's a great example.
And it,